Hello, friends. Welcome back to a 1D10T Does Stuff. I apologize for the lack of background music right now. And we are going to be watching something, so I am going to need to put these on. I apologize for the lack of background music. Geez, I am just totally out of sorts this morning. Sorry about that, folks. It has been a hectic morning. Had to get the oil changed in the Blueberry, and I still haven't figured out what's gone wrong with my soundboard. So here we are. And we will be watching this video. I'm late to Ye's apology, but fashionably so, by Audra Rains. Again, I'm a big fan of Audra Rains. I think you should all go check them out. They are a lot of fun, and they are streaming right now, so they are worth checking out. In fact, it wouldn't bother me if you left my stream to go check them out. I'm not telling you to, but it wouldn't bother me. But first, let's do today's ad read. Today's pre-roll is brought to you by The Hidden Leaf, downtown Charlottesville, 105 West Main Street. The Hidden Leaf. On the downtown mall, 105 West Main Street, above the bricks, Suite 200. A great place to go with some great buds to get some great buds. A bud. And the only thing better than their bud is their customer service. Also, they have the lowest prices in town, according to my own personally highly biased research, by which I mean I was very high when I did my biased research. Also, they are findable on Instagram. Cheese and crackers, forgetting stuff and everything. Findable on Instagram at The Hidden Leaf, where you can also find our other two sponsors, Firehouse, spelled with a Z, findable at Firehouse on Instagram, again, spelled with a Z, Firehouse. And Kush Gang Snacks, purveyor of fine edibles and drinkables, findable on Instagram at KGSnacks434. Now we are gonna be discussing some difficult topics. I forgot to put that in my description. Hold on, pardon me, friends, while I do this thing real quick. I am just, like I said, I am out of sorts today. And there we go. We will be talking about mental health, and how it relates to the Black community today. And that's why we're watching this video that we're going to be watching. We aren't going to be really discussing Ye's career as much as we will be discussing we will be discussing him in reference to mental health. But I'm going to try very hard to not make any judgment calls here, because I don't really have any room to make any judgment calls. You know, I don't have his lived experience in any way, shape, or form. I will say that my judgment call is, I do have a judgment call in that he said some heinous stuff in the past. And it's my opinion that every individual needs to decide whether or not they accept his apology. Past that, I'm going to try and refrain very hard from making any judgment calls, because I don't share any lived experience. So, yeah, we will be talking about some difficult topics. Some political stuff might come up. Some difficult stuff might come up. I might be expressing opinions. Those opinions belong to me. They do not belong to any of the advertisers or any of the people featured in the video. You know, Audra Rains has their own opinions, and their opinions are going to be, I would say, probably, not saying my opinions aren't valid, but theirs are more valid because they have put more work into learning about these topics. They've put more work into getting educated. They've put more work into the process of being critical and critical thinking than I have. They are, as compared to me, they are an expert on the subject where I am not. But also, you know, their lived experience is very different than mine. So, I will say, you know, I do agree with, I'm going to go out on a limb, use some hyperbole, and say I agree with everything they say in the video. And I haven't heard them say anything I disagree with not in the video, like on Twitch. So, that, you know, but I don't just agree with them because they're them. I agree with them because what they say makes sense. What they say is, yeah. There's a lot of muddy sort of intellectual and opinion stuff that goes on here that can be a little difficult to parse out with words, but there is some emotional, sort of intellectual, I know this sort of stuff as well. For instance, I know I don't have near the same level of critical thinking experience as Audra Rains does. I don't know how to parse that out in terms of why we should definitely give extra weight to their opinion. There's some explanation in there that I can't quite get to. But so that's where we're at there. And some idea of what we're going to do. Audra Rains usually talks about social and political topics through the lens of popular culture, and keeps it entertaining. Hey, Chris in the 386, thanks for being here. Much love. Enjoy your lurk. Enjoy your work. Again, I apologize for being so underprepared today. It has been crazy already. All right, let's dive into this video.
We are the weirdos, mister.
We're going to talk about Kanye West and his apology. Now, before I really get into this, one thing I do want to say up front, in your face, also, I'm going to tell you, this is being recorded for YouTube, so if you don't want your comments seen, I don't know what to tell you. They're on screen.
This video is on YouTube. Just because we're watching it here does not mean you should not go watch the video. You should go watch this video on its own. In fact, if you're watching this on YouTube, watching me on YouTube, you should pause my video, go watch this entire video, and then come back and watch my video. That way you'll know exactly how stupid I really am.
I have zero apologies for that. Med check nerds, period. Thank you, Hermie.
Head check.
But I will say this about Kanye West, mental illness in Black communities. I do give grace for that because Black communities are overwhelmingly filled with people who go to the church. And as such, therefore, and forthwith, mental illness is not really seen as something that Black people can have for a lot of Black folks. If you are anxious, it's that your soul is up to no good. You're doing something wrong, and that's why you are anxious. If you are depressed, you're just not going to church enough. You need to give it up to God. This isn't to say that you can't have your beliefs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying inherently in the Black community, mental illness of any form is usually seen as a failure on your part to give your life to the Lord. So that becomes quite a bit of a problem for Black people to even accept that they have any kind of mental illness, any kind of neurodivergence.
Now, this is not just a problem in the Black community. However, it appears to be a really big problem in the Black community. Rural Virginia, having come out of rural Virginia, still being in rural Virginia, there's a lot of pray the crazy away, along with a lot of pray the gay away. It is a very... mental health in Christian communities can very much, at least to me, because I'm an outsider to Christian communities, very much appears to be turned back in on itself. It's go to church for it. Talk to your pastor or your preacher about it, and they'll be your counselor. They'll be your guidance in the situation. And while I get that it may be easier to talk to your pastor than a doctor, a psychiatrist or a psychologist, they have built in, they have a specific mission. They have an agenda. And that agenda is to get you to come to church more, get you to be in church more, and get you to be in service of God more. And that agenda is, I feel like that agenda can be at odds with the search for emotional peace of some kind. I also think that churches. And here's where I'm not in the community, so I don't know, so I can't. I've got to be careful about this because I'm not there. But again, as an outsider, not just an outsider to church communities, but an outsider to Black communities, it appears to me that churches, while the Black churches weren't originally meant to propagate the status quo it seems to me that that is what they have become. That Christianity has been twisted to the purposes of white supremacy. However, I'm not in black churches, so I don't know. I don't know if that's what it, if they exist now to help enforce conformity and, help ease the cognitive dissonance that black people experience and the symptoms that come out of that cognitive dissonance that black people experience from living in a society that is in many ways actively antagonistic. And in the ways it's not actively antagonistic, it's systemically, passively antagonistic. I'm not in those spaces, so I can't be sure. So yeah, I do know that in white spaces, in white rural spaces, that is what their churches are set up to maintain. The churches in white rural spaces are set up to maintain a status quo. Now, this is also very much generalizing the entire Christian faith under one umbrella, and that's not entirely fair. Catholics seem to be distancing themselves from a lot of this. Is it Unitarians, I think, are working really hard to also distance themselves from this kind of thing. But I don't know.
Because overwhelmingly you are just told, like, oh, that's just how we are. That's your grandpa's just particular. It doesn't, he's not autistic. That's not where you got this from. And you're not autistic. We're just normal in this family. You just got to go to church. There's nothing wrong with collecting things. They'll do this. Yeah, and the same thing happens in Latino communities. It does happen in black and brown communities, and they regularly go, that's white shit. That's white people stuff. And you're like, oh. Anyways, I'm still depressed. So all of that to say, we're going to look at this. And I got this from Faux Moi on Reddit because of who I am as a person. And so this is the apology. It says, to those I've hurt, 25 years ago, I was in a car accident that broke my jaw and caused injury to the right frontal lobe of my brain. At the time, the focus was on the visible damage, the fracture, the swelling, and the immediate physical trauma. Thank you for the follow. The deeper injury, the one...
I want to take a brief aside here and talk about traumatic brain injury. And how traumatic brain injury can affect personality. I'm not an expert on this. I've only heard the anecdotes that other people have. The guy who got the tamping rod shot through his eye and his skull and went from being the nicest guy in the world to the meanest guy in the world. And I know, oh gosh, what's that term for when you start suffering from too many concussions? It's traumatic encephalitis. Traumatic cranial encephalitis? Something like that. And that, we've seen that cause extreme personality changes in football players, in boxers, in professional wrestlers who, they aren't even, it's not a combat sport. it's an entertainment sport. Yes, those people are throwing themselves around hard. Yes, they are doing some pretty athletic and amazing things, and yeah, they do hit the ground pretty hard, and they hit their heads pretty hard, but they're not like football where they are slamming into each other on purpose. This traumatic encephalitis, though, can completely change somebody's personality. And it doesn't have to be, I don't think it has to be from repeated concussions. I think it can happen from one. I'm pretty sure it can. And to me, it felt like Ye, then Kanye, had a bit of a turn after the accident, after the car accident where he smashed up his jaw and head. I don't know if anybody remembers what he looked like that before that, but he was like, his jaw was normal shaped. He didn't have that like super Chad jawline like he has now. That came from that accident and you know, shattering his jaw, having it wired shut. And I remember at the time I didn't think a lot about it, but I do feel like I saw a personality change in him at the time, and it just kept getting worse and worse, more extreme. Not worse, just more extreme. I guess you could call it worse. He said some stuff that was, but again, more extreme.
One inside my skull went unnoticed. And this, I'm going to say, yeah, because Black people aren't treated well generally in hospitals. We are regularly seen as drug seeking. We are regularly seen as not being in pain. This is why, again, whenever possible, if you're Black or brown, highly recommend that you make sure that your doctor, if you can, is Black or brown. You will get treated better. You will get treated better.
And a woman. And a woman. If you can, a Black or brown woman doctor will treat you better. She is more likely to have empathy and have a, well, again, I want to be careful. I don't want to generalize Black and brown women doctors, but generally, well, for a Black or brown woman or Black or brown person, they will have a very similar lived experience. The medical system works really hard to teach everybody that Black and brown people and that women feel less pain and complain about it more than white men. And this is obviously, this is completely not true, for one. We're all humans. Each individual human has different pain tolerances, but on the whole, as a species, our pain tolerance falls within a very narrow band that we are, you know, we all essentially have the same pain tolerance. We all bleed red. We all get hurt. If you prick me, do I not bleed? If you tickle me, do I not punch you and say, tickling is not funny? But the medical system, and we've found that out when we were reading Sickened, I believe it was Sickened, was where we were delving into that. Also, we were discovering that doctors don't listen to black and brown people, especially women, that their lived experience and their immediate experience is disregarded. This holds true for mental health as well.
Once I switch to black and brown doctors, like, I actually get taken care of. Okay? Because white ladies are mean as fuck to me. They're just mean. They're frustrated, they're irritated, and I'm just like, babes, I'm sorry, I don't want to be in this ER either, but I don't have a choice because my job is telling me that I have to have a doctor's note, and unfortunately, I, am in the US of A, and they don't allow you to see your doctor the same day. So now I'm here, which typically I would have just stayed home, but I can't do it, so now I'm here. And now you're being mean to me, and I'm like, listen, lady, I understand that your job is stressful, but also so is mine, and you could attempt to treat me with respect. It's something you could try to do. Like, a lot of black and brown people have medical trauma just from how they were treated since they were children in hospitals. And it's why they don't go. It's why there's like all these jokes about like black people trying to use everything under the sun to help you with an illness, because traditionally the medical system does not care about us and does not treat us well.
No, it does not.
So he brings up comprehensive scans were not done, neurological exams were limited, and the possibility of a frontal lobe injury was never raised. It wasn't properly diagnosed until 2023. That medical oversight caused serious damage to my mental health and led to my bipolar type 1 diagnosis. Now, I don't know where he's getting all of this from. Potentially a doctor, I don't know, but he's just saying this, and that's fine. Self-diagnosis or whatever it is that you're going to say, it is what you say. I'm a huge proponent of self-diagnosis, especially for women, femmes, black and brown people, because again,
I am also actually a proponent of self-diagnosis. Having seen the failures of diagnosis by the system, this decision that somebody is having a psychotic break when it is something else. Let me be careful about what I say here. However, I've seen the failure of the mental health system to be able to diagnose issues, diagnose problems, issues, situations, and that failure to diagnose has led to putting people on some pretty intense medications that don't treat what's really going on. They treat a set of symptoms that may or may not fit with the actual symptoms, but fit with the diagnosis that the doctor has decided. Diagnosis seems to me to be much like the narrative building that police do, in that it's supposed to be taking the facts at hand and building the story that fits. A lot of times what it is having a suspicion and collecting and cherry-picking data that supports your suspicion. And again, I think that this is, and I think Audra is about to say this, I think it's more prevalent with black and brown people because black and brown people are not listened to. But let's listen to Audra say it.
again, we don't get taken seriously when we go to the hospital and we're like, hey, I think I have ADHD. Oh, I think I have this. And they're like, I don't know. You're looking me in the eyes. I'm like, because you're looking me in the eyes. It's very uncomfortable. I would like to look elsewhere, but you're staring me down, and now I have to stare you down, and now we're both looking at each other, and you're like, you have eye contact. I'm like, because you're looking at me. I refuse to even speak to Medicare reps that aren't femme, 100%. I just don't. I'm like, is there someone else I can talk to that isn't you? Bipolar disorder comes with its own defense system, denial. When you're manic, you don't think you're sick. You think everyone else is overreacting. You feel like you're seeing the world more clearly than ever, when in reality, you're losing your grip entirely. Now, this is very, very true of a lot of bipolar people. I know this just because I know bipolar people. I know bipolar people who have gone through this. And again, it goes back to like why bipolar folks often get off their medications because they start feeling like, I'm fine, I'm doing well, I don't need this medicine. Everybody was just like tripping, I'm okay, I'm doing great, I feel better than great, I feel amazing, I feel like I can take over the whole world, I feel like I'm God. And then, obviously things go bad from there.
This is something I have experienced with the bipolar people in my life as well. That when they're manic, and not all of the bipolar people in my life are like this, but, when they were manic, they felt amazing and they could take on the world. And then when they weren't, there was a serious problem. But not all bipolar people present like that. I have bipolar friends who hate their manic stages. When they're depressed, they feel fine because that's comfortable for them and that's okay. But when they get manic, it's not the same. It's not an empowering mania. It's frightening to them. But it still is there's a point in the cycle at which they're like, I'm fine, I don't need my meds. It does, also, it's very hard it can be very hard to know when it gets past just having mood swings into bipolar. I am not bipolar. I have mood swings. I don't know where that line is. That would mean that I am bipolar, but I know I haven't crossed that line myself. I also think that being bipolar can be environmental. I think I'm not saying it always is, I'm saying it can be. I'm saying that trauma in one's life can give one these sets of symptoms, put one in these mindsets, give someone these diseases. And I think that makes it even harder to be taken seriously. If you weren't always like that, then why are you like that now? So yeah, that's bipolar to me is up there with traumatic brain injury as to how someone's personality can get changed. And again, I think it's much harder for a black person, a person of color, or a black person or a person of color to be taken seriously when they come in saying these things. And I think part of that, and I don't know where to look to back this statement up, but I think part of that is because of behavioral health, which uses a lot of the same diagnoses to continue to try to control a population, to control the population of black and brown people. And behavioral health, why I think behavioral health uses these same diagnoses and why they have to do that is because of the inequality that black and brown people and women have to endure. This systemic and societal inequality requires a set of societal behaviors that include conformity and what's that word I am looking for? You guys don't know, but not, the behavior of conformity and not bucking the status quo, not being abnormal, not disagreeing, not just knowing your place and staying in your place. And when that place is, that's knowing your place and staying in your place is actually never gonna, I think, work for a healthy society. I think you have to have social mobility. You have to be able to move through different social circles and around through the entire experience of the human existence so that you can understand where everybody's coming from. But also that, got lost. That idea of social conformity breaks down when people buck that know your place, stay your place trend. The conformity, that conformity to that mindset, that social status hierarchy, also serves those at the top of the hierarchy very well. However, it does not serve those at the bottom very well. And you need a set of rules, strict rules in place to keep the people at the bottom of the hierarchy from saying, this doesn't work for me. And those strict rules that are in place, they start with these societal norms about how people are supposed to act. They move into societal norms about how people are supposed to deal with their health, both physical and mental. And they move then into these more strict behavioral laws that, that may not be written into legal foundation, but are written into social foundation. The don't come out of your neighborhood, the don't the don't interact, the don't mix, the don't, that people have died from. I'm trying to remember the name of that man who went jogging and got shot because of it. He went jogging. Dude was out getting exercise, and a black man, and a bunch of white guys went, he is a black man in a white neighborhood. The societal laws say that he must be up to no good, so they went and shot him. And that is part of this behavioralism that I am so bothered by. That act of punishing that man for coming out of his neighborhood for completely justifiable reasons, by the way. I mean, jogging? Dude. But also, that man shouldn't have had to justify his reasons for coming out of his neighborhood. He's a human being in a free country. He should have freedom of movement wherever he pleases. But this act of punishing him for that was also this act of behavioral modification, trying to scare black people back into their neighborhoods. And that behavioral conditioning is much larger than just the mental health institutions. But it is also integral in that. These mental health institutions are putting labels on people for not fitting into the status quo. Now, they're doing this to everybody, because if you don't fit into the status quo, then you are a threat to that hierarchy. But they want to do it more to black and brown people because they, I don't know that I can give you a real reason because I'm not in their heads, but from what I've observed, they see black and brown people as a greater threat because of the amount of privilege that white men have lived on. And any loss of that privilege is a threat, which means that anybody else gaining privilege is a perceived threat. So the more you can suppress a people, hey, Just Me Crystal, the more you can suppress a people by much love, by altering their behavior through both through societal actions such as punishing black people for coming out of their neighborhoods, but also through the medical infrastructures by labeling black and brown people with all of these labels, all of these disorders that they may or may not have, but I think a lot of I don't know, but I think a lot of what we perceive as these disorders are really people having a hard time with the status quo and having a hard time being pushed into fitting into the status quo. Which is what I mean by these things can be environmental too. Being forced into that status quo can be very traumatic, and I think it... Gonna leave it as can be very traumatic. And I think that trauma plays into actual damage being done, actual psychic damage being done to black and brown people who are just trying to live their lives. Yeah, okay. This is, again, I don't know where to look to find the things that will support what I'm saying. This is stuff that I know I've heard other people say. I don't remember where I've heard it. I know I have heard other people say this stuff. And I know I've heard other people make these entire connections. I don't think I'd be able to do this if other people hadn't already done that. I don't remember who. I don't remember where. Honestly, probably FD Signifier. I don't know. But I had a thought and then it went away. Just because I don't know how to back this up doesn't make it not true. Just because I'm not sure where I got this information from doesn't make it not true. I would like to always, love, always. I would like to find a way to... I would like to, re-find all of that information wherever I first heard it and share that with you guys. But also, I'd like to have a much more sound base on which to put my pulpit from which I am preaching. I can see... I know that some of where I get this from is from my best friend who used to live with me, who has got her own place and doing really well with having her own space that is hers, that she has control over, that she's, as much control over as you can have with a 2-year-old child. But that has been very good for her on her healing journey. I know that in her life, what I have observed is the social anxiety and the bipolar, what appears to be bipolar disorder, and to have been triggered by being out around people. She used to be a people person. She used to like being out in public around people, live music, and just doing stuff and meeting new people. I remember she used to just meet new people. Hi, you look interesting, let's talk. But in the time that I've known her, I've watched that be eradicated from her and replaced by anxiety and fear. A lot of that having to do with the both micro and macro aggressions that she's had to face from the world. I remember when white men being racist to her and not respecting her boundaries got her to start throwing hands. Like, I remember before she was a fighter and when she turned into a fighter. I saw that happen, and I saw why. I saw that it was white men not respecting her boundaries. And so I've also watched that crumble away and her go to being just not wanting to be out in public. The giving up on being a fighter because it takes so much energy and is also not a light burden to bear to be called an angry black woman. That is, because of course that's what everybody was calling her. Not to my face. They daren't say it to my face, but I know that's what was going around about her behind her back. I also remember when she used to be able to be very excited and happy about things. But at some point she had to pull that back because she was beginning to be labeled a loud black woman. Not loud in a bad way, but she was happy, she was excited, but loud black woman carries a very negative connotation. And she had to pull it back. And I miss her exuberance. There were times when we were alone, not around people, that would still come out, and still does occasionally, but it's much more subdued. And I've witnessed how societal trauma can cause personality change. Extreme societal trauma. I don't know that we'll call it extreme. Societal trauma can cause personality change. It doesn't just have to be physical trauma. So, let's get back to the video, because I have just gone off on another heck of a tangent.
And then they get back on their medication, and then they're okay for a while until the cycle starts again. That's the problem. One of many problems with bipolar, but they yes. run into that, and it's difficult. It's difficult for them to handle and for them to deal with, and that's why sometimes having people in their lives who understand that they are bipolar. Again, it's not an excuse, but it is a reason. Having people understand that. And this is, again, the misogyny of Kim K and being like, she caused this. I need y'all to stop. I don't like Kim Kardashian. I don't. But she didn't cause this. She did try to help this man. He just wasn't interested in the help at the time.
I'm pretty sure
once people label you
this
as crazy, you feel as if you cannot contribute anything meaningful to...
I'm pretty sure what caused this was the car crash. And I have no love for Kim Kardashian. I don't even know anything really about their relationship, but from what Audra says, Kim Kardashian did a lot here to at least stick with the guy. Hey, Lockpick. Thank you for being here. Good to see you. Much love. So yeah, I think picking on somebody for being present, for trying to be present for their significant other is cruel. That's not right.
To the world. It's easy for people to joke and laugh it off when, in fact, this is a very serious, debilitating disease you can die from. According to the World Health Organization and Cambridge University, people with bipolar disorder have a life expectancy that is shortened by 10 to 15 years on average.
No. We are talking about Ye's apology, mainly to facilitate talking about mental health, the problems with the mental health system for Black people. And we are watching an Audra Rains video to do that. Audra Rains is a streamer here on Twitch, streaming right now. Also YouTuber, and they are they discuss cultural and political issues through the lens of popular culture. They are, I think, phenomenal, in my opinion, and they're. When I watched their video about the Ye apology, felt like it did a really good job of opening the door into having the discussion about mental health for Black people. So we're doing that now, and we will be referring back to this again. After we get through with Fearing the Black Body by Sabrina Strings, we'll find a way to come back to opening the door into this discussion about mental health for Black people. This video is touching on a lot of the stuff that I really wanted to talk about, that brought me into this, that I really wanted to focus on these Tuesday streams. Even though what we really have been doing so far is building up background to get here. So we are sort of jumping putting the cart before the horse, so to speak. Jumping the gun. Neither of those sounds good. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but I wanted to do that so that it started being on people's minds. And again, I really recommend and go back and watch the Audra Rains video all the way through without me interrupting. My interruptions are probably not helpful to getting the point of their video. But yeah, we were just having a brief aside about Kim Kardashian and about how she, at least if she didn't do anything else, at least she tried to stick with someone who needed her help, even if he wasn't interested in her help.
and a 2 to 3 times higher all-cause mortality rate than the general population. This is on par with severe heart disease, type 1. It's crazy. You feel as if you cannot contribute anything meaningful to the world. It's easy for people to joke and laugh it off when, in fact, this is a very serious, debilitating disease you can die from. According to the World Health Organization and Cambridge University, people with bipolar disorder have a life expectancy that is shortened by 10 to 15 years on average, and a 2 to 3 times higher all-cause mortality rate than the general population. This is on par with severe heart disease, type 1 diabetes, HIV, and cancer, all lethal and fatal if left untreated. Yes, because when you go into the depressed phase of it, where you hit your lows, it's much easier for folks with bipolar disorder to engage in suicidal ideations and to follow through with that. Yeah, I do hate the stigma against bipolar, psychotic disorder, and BPD. I do hate them because it very much makes people, and again, this is why I get frustrated with people where they go like, you having X doesn't mean, and it's like, actually, that's exactly what the fuck it means. Like when they're like, you being autistic doesn't mean that you don't have to like care about other people, and you're like, kind of. I work against it, but kind of. If I don't know you well enough, I kind of don't give a fuck about your plight. Like, why are you telling me? I don't know why you're telling me this. It's why a lot of autistic people have difficulties in corporate environments, because we don't care. But like I said this before, we don't necessarily care about your fucking birthday. We don't even know you well enough. Why do we want to go to your birthday celebration at work? Like, let me just work. It's not done.
I mean, I have the opposite problem. I find it incredibly easy to care about everyone. But just because I don't have that issue doesn't mean that I can't recognize it in someone else. And there are people on the spectrum who that's just not how they're wired. They are not wired for the emotion of caring about someone else. Lockpick. I think she has a background that she can draw on there. I think she has a background there she can draw on. I think she's learned a lot about it. Yeah. She's speaking, I think, from a place of experience. I'm not going to go out on a limb. I don't want to go out on a limb and say, and speak for her. I don't know enough myself to step into this can of worms. I know that she knows more than I do. I'm going with that. I also know that I know that we can't really generalize about autism just because it presents differently in everyone. Okay. I don't want to. I'm not going to invalidate your experience. Okay. let's see how I can navigate this delicately. I think I think there's room for her experience to be true and for others to have very, very different experiences. Let me okay. Okay. Yes, that is true. That is different. Those two things are different. I will go with that. I think that there are people who are wired to not have the same emotional connection to other humans. And again, I think that can both be an environmental thing, but it can also be an inherent quality. It can be something that someone is just wired for. Oh, man. I mean, no, you're right there. You're right there. That is, it's not exactly what it means. I think it may be exactly what it means for her. In her lived experience. This is not okay. Let me, because I can't speak on autism, let me speak on something I can speak on that has a similar range of types of presentations. And that's attention deficit disorder. I have what people consider the classic attention deficit disorder without hyperactivity. My mind is not always hyperactive, even though I am almost always thinking. I don't get a hyperactive body, and, you know, amphetamines behave like amphetamines to me. I also have the I also have the quality where I have the ooh shiny squirrel type of ADD. I'm very distractible. I can't hold two things in my head at once. I can't multitask. I can't. But there are lots of types of attention deficit disorder, and it ranges. It ranges from that to hyper focused, highly productive, you know, with the inability to sit still. It is, so I there are a range. I mean, I concede your point there, Lockpick. It is not the best example to prove her point. But okay, Yes, I'm going to try it. I want to keep this on track because what we are talking about here, what we are really trying to talk about is mental health and its relation to black people. So, yeah. Hop on in. Okay. VC is open. And I will say, Lockpick, that we need to remember that you are a white man actuallying a black woman. We need to be cognizant of that and sensitive to that. All right.
There we go. I think I got it working.
Oh, let me do something real quick. I forgot to switch the audio over, so I was getting a... There we go. I was getting a echo. All right, got the audio working.
Check, check, 1, 2. Are we better now?
We are.
Okay, the issue with what I have with what she just said. Yeah. And I honestly, it makes me skeptical about anything else she's going to say. I'm going to have to go and actually read up on anything else she has to say as a result of this. The stigma that autistic people don't give a fuck is incredibly wrong and is almost damaging for her to say.
Okay.
Because one of the experiences, and this isn't just my own, this isn't just me parroting what I went through, because I've also got another couple quirks that let me deal with it, so most people don't realize it until they really get to know me. But it's usually not a case of the people not giving a fuck. It's usually the exact opposite. A lot of times there's a lot of the social cues that are misinterpreted or not interpreted at all. But a lot of times they do really give a fuck and are often told their entire lives that, oh, you're just an uncaring whatever. People treat them like they don't give a fuck and look down at them like they don't give a fuck. When the reality is they very strongly usually do. They just don't know how to show it because it's not inherent to show it the way it is, like most people. So they're literally trying to fit in somewhere, somehow trying to navigate this world, whether you see it on the outside or not. And the interpretation that's them just not giving a fuck is basically it's almost on par with blaming somebody who's a victim of abuse or something like that. Like they're dealing with something and they're trying to get out of it and they don't understand it. Or they understand it in a different way and they don't understand why you don't see it their way. So, that can come across as maybe they're not connected or they're not quite with you, but that's not them not giving a fuck. So for her to use that as the example of that, that's exactly what that means, is I don't give a fuck. I'm sure, yeah, there's probably cases out there where that is exactly the case. But more often than not, that's a struggle of them trying to fit in and feel like they're a human being like the people around them.
Okay.
And a lot of the times the habit is to treat them like you just don't give a fuck. And that's, I don't know, that's damaging. I think that one needs to be pointed out, because what she just said there, it's entirely possible I'm not the only person who's going to hear this or did hear what she said and is like saying, no,
Okay.
that doesn't describe me at all.
I mean,
But
yeah.
where did she get her education and stuff? Where did she do her? Because I know she's no joke. We've
Yeah.
had her on before, and I've seen a lot of her videos. I'm actually surprised to hear her say what she just said.
I don't know. I need to research. I'd need to research where she. I I know that some of what she's speaking from is her personal experience. Having spent time in her streams, she draws a lot from what's gone on in her own life.
Like, is she on the spectrum, or does she deal with people who are on the spectrum?
She's on the spectrum. I mean,
Okay, so then
I hate to. I know she's not necessarily quiet about it, but I also hate to just straight up come out and say, "Oh, that's she's on the spectrum," but also she is kind of upfront about that. And that's why I keep saying this is her lived experience. This is what she, where she's coming from.
because I did basically when I was first diagnosed, I was at a time when it was a weird case, because the world still had a lot of the world still had that whole, you're either Rain Man or you're just a behavioral problem.
Right.
They didn't realize that it wasn't quite known as a spectrum. For the most part, I guess would be the easiest way to put it.
Right.
They thought it was a very hard case of black and white. This is what you got, or this is what you don't have. And I actually had a lot of guys doing a lot of interviews. I was in there coaching a bunch of people at the hospital like 2-3 times a month for I did that for years. We'd have a group of people, and the reason I take such exception to what she said is, for most of the people there, one of the biggest things that helped, especially with the younger children, is when you're called out and someone says you don't care. Oh, hang on a second. Let me finish that. I'll call him back. But yeah, if somebody says, you don't care,
Right.
just tell them, if you do care, let them know I do care. I just don't know how to show you that.
Okay.
And a lot of them started doing that, and were treated differently at school, because then at least the other kids were like, okay, you're
Right.
just different.
Okay.
Hopefully I didn't cut out there.
No, we caught that last word.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for clarifying your point. It is a lot easier for you to clarify that by speaking to us than trying to get that over the
Yes.
text.
Yes, I didn't want to type all that.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. I get that. I'm.
And it's I understand how she used it. Like, I get what she was like. I get the point she was going for. That yes, there
Yeah.
are things like bipolarism, like bipolar disorder. There are a bunch of things where that's exactly what it means, and that's exactly what you're going through, and you need to deal with this. It's not one of those, there are a lot of them, and I think she just picked a very poor example. And I'm pretty sure if she had sat down long enough and thought about it, she would have picked a better one.
Okay.
But
Okay.
but yeah, that was my dispatcher calling. So I gotta let you go, and I gotta call him back and find out what the hell just blew up. So
I'll talk to you later, Lockpick. Thank you for hopping in.
All right,
Thank you
sounds
for
good.
sharing.
talk to you soon, man.
Talk to you soon. Okay. I don't want to get away from the point she was making. I see where Lockpick's coming from. I need to be very careful because I am very much on the outside of all of this. So, we're going to keep going. and we're going to get on with the point she's making.
Done to be like hateful. We're here for a job, and like it's weird for a lot of us that we're at our job and you're like, oh, so and so's having a baby, let's have a shower, and you're like, I don't care about that. I can't get excited because I don't care. So now instead we're forced to go to these things and stand awkwardly in the corner with our paper plate of cake being like, congratulations. You know, we're the ones that do say that they were, so it was like, I'm pregnant. And you're like, I'm sorry. Wait, what did you want the response to be? I apologize. Are you happy about this?
All right. I do that, though. I am one of those people who, when somebody says I'm pregnant, I'm like, congratulations or I'm sorry? Which would you like? So, I get where she's coming from with that one.
That's what white people think community is. That part. For social engagement. Oh, joy. Right. It's a big reason why a lot of us are just like, no, I don't want to do anything with you outside of work. I don't even want to do anything with you at work, but I have to because we're working. The scariest thing about this disorder is how persuasive it is when it tells you you don't need help. It makes you blind, but convinced you have insight. You feel powerful, certain, and unstoppable. I lost touch with reality. Things got worse the longer I ignored the problem. I said and did things I deeply regret. Some of the people I love the most, I treated the worst. You endured fear, confusion, humiliation, and the exhaustion of trying to have someone who was, at times, unrecognizable. Looking back, I became detached from my true self. This was kind of one of the reasons why I didn't... The way that people regularly would laugh at Kanye and him going through his manic episodes, I was just like, y'all just need to chill. Because, again, I'm aware that he's putting this out in the public forefront, but I also need people to pay attention to the difference in how, like, black people who have mental health disorders are treated versus white people who have mental health disorders, right? Because Charlie Sheen was, like, celebrated. People were wandering around being like Tiger Blood and like all of this stuff, having shirts and shit. He went on a whole like tour going through like an addiction and all of this stuff. He was.
On a side note, I am absolutely, utterly amazed that Charlie Sheen didn't get Me Too'd. I am absolutely amazed that Charlie Sheen didn't do anything to anyone. Everything he did to himself. That has no bearing on anything of the conversation. I'm just absolutely amazed that he's one of the people who didn't get Me Too'd. And I'm back. He's a party guy, but he does respect women. Just saying. But yeah, he was, the point she's making here is that he's celebrated for that, and yet Kanye's made fun of, and I really don't think Charlie Sheen should have been celebrated for his mania, because of how unhealthy it was, like how unhealthy he was.
Was just like
yeah,
able to make all of this money and people were celebrating it. Not that it was good. That's not a good thing to do either. It wasn't helping. But like Kanye, first of all, he's infantilized, whether people want to admit it or not. He becomes infantilized because somehow it's Kim Kardashian's fault that he's like this. Still hate it. I don't like Kim Kardashian, but the misogyny of blaming her for his mental health issues, wild behavior. Some of y'all need to be ashamed of yourselves. There's literally not. Yeah, the
Girl
winning.
got killed in Haddonfield.
Oh, Nelly. But yeah, like people were like, we're winning, and people were doing that for so long.
For the record,
Meanwhile,
I don't think he is a punchline. Good.
Kanye's getting excommunicated from like literally every community available.
The only punchline I feel like Ye was ever, and even this, I disagreed with this, but would people go in, why are you using the auto-tune? You don't need it. He didn't need the auto-tune, but I really liked the way it made his voice sound. I just really like that extra little edge the auto-tune gives. He didn't need it, but so that's the only time that, the rest of the time it was painful to watch and scary. You know, I mean, yeah, there was a little bit of like, oh, what's he gonna do this time? But when he did it, it was never like, oh, that's funny. It was always like, oh, that's, oh, not cool, not good. Yeah, he used it like an instrument, right? He did. Anyway, that's also beside the point.
Yes, Kanye had been acting how he did prior to Kim K. That part, people like expected her to stay around and fix him, and I just thought that was weird. The push for women to just like stay around. No, she did the right thing in leaving. It's one of the few right things that she did. Okay. In that fractured state, I gravitated toward the most destructive symbol I could find, the swastika, and even sold t-shirts bearing it. Wow. Okay. One of the difficult aspects of having bipolar type 1 are the disconnected moments, many of which I still cannot recall, that led to poor judgment and reckless behavior that oftentimes...
We'll back up there just a second, but yeah, and he did crank out banger after banger. I did not listen to the last album, so I don't know. But also, you know, this is, yeah, again, this isn't so much about Ye or his career, but about how this translates to, how this opens the door to a conversation about mental health in Black people. And that is, you know, part of the only reason why he was able to get to this point is because, and by this point, I mean get to the point where he got help and was able to make the apology, is because he did have the money from putting out banger after banger. And the money from shucking and driving for the white man. His proximity to whiteness gave him privilege to eventually get the help that he needed.
Feels like an out-of-body experience. I regret and am deeply mortified by my actions in that state, and am committed to accountability, treatment, and meaningful change. It does not excuse what I did, though. I am not a Nazi or an anti-Semite. I love Jewish people.
Sentence sounds a little weird. Moment.
I don't really know what to say about that. I'm a little like,
that, yeah.
It is a reason, but not an excuse. Because I will say, you know, on top of all of these things happening, his mother passes away. And I'm, you know, relatively positive that he was the one who paid for, she passed away during routine liposuction. And I'm certain, you know, he was paying for that, and there's got to be a lot of stress in dealing with that. And he kind of had to keep moving. He had tours, he had things going on, and he didn't take time, I think, to really mourn that. And I do think that it exacerbated the bipolar disorder. And to be clear, I don't think people understand that not all mental health disorders are things that people are born with. They can be caused by situations. So in his case, what he is saying is, he had a car accident, which fundamentally changed his brain chemistry, which then led to him being diagnosed with bipolar. And so when you're going through shit like that, especially, I think it does make it even more difficult because you're like, no, stress is a hell of a drug. Stress will kill you, and it kills a lot of people.
And it will convince you that it's not
and in
stress.
fact, because people live I'm not going to say in fact, I'm going to say allegedly, people live in so much stress that a lot of people who retire from work tend to die, within a year after they retire. Because you just have lived a life filled with stress. And when that stress is suddenly gone and you can relax, your body just kind of shuts the fuck down. So this is why I always say, enjoy your moments, have your fun moments, enjoy your fun life. Don't feel like you absolutely have to do a very specific thing.
Great advice.
And it's, again, why a lot of them will end up going back to work because they've seen other people around them die within a year of being retired. So they just find another job or something to do. Cortisol is my bestie. Yes, can be environmental, trauma response, epigenetic, etc. Thank you. I like Juna. Juna, you're good. I like having you here. I agree. It can manifest over time too. Constantly on edge and stress does not help anything. Yes. The stress is keeping me alive, just like the burgers are for Trump.
Wow. That was a good one. And he had the world laughing at him while dealing with it all. Yeah. Yeah.
So, to the black community.
That has to be even worse. That has to make it even worse. Having, being the punchline while dealing with your problems. Again, this is, and also these problems a lot of them seem to be environmental. A lot of them seem to be brought on by outside stressors that happen to him. He was a bit of a jerk before the car accident, but this is, the outside stressors seem to be let's see. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting to that next thought. The white mental health issue is seen as legit, but the black mental health issue is often seen as being uppity and not as a medical issue, similar to Sheen and Kanye. Yeah, exactly. And, making him a punchline during the whole thing is just makes it worse.
Community. Oh, now he's talking to us. Which held me down through all of the highs and lows and the darkest of times. The black community is unquestionably the foundation of who I am. I am so sorry to have let you down. I love us. Okay. I hope so. Again, Kanye was like this visionary. He had so many good jams. He was out there doing things. He was rapping, through a wire. It was great. And then all of this started happening, and people regularly were like, "Hey, maybe you should get some help." And he was like, "Nah," which was rough. They were just like, "Hey." I knew as soon as he started being like, "I'm gonna have a church and a school," I was like, "Oh, somebody needs to try to rein him in."
A friend of our family, a friend, a member of the communal family, when he was having his manic episodes, one of his manic episodes, he wanted to buy a riverboat casino. He wanted to have a riverboat casino on, I think he was talking about going to the Mississippi and doing it, moving into West Virginia, and but it was that, you know, at the time it felt ridiculous. But then his next manic episode, he started trying to sell glass houses. And that felt uncomfortable. That was like, okay, this is too far. Like, this is, like, I know it feels like this should be funny, but it's not. You know, when he tried to convince me to buy a glass house, and I had to be like, I have trouble not breaking wooden ones. You know, I really felt weird. It felt really weird. It felt, I was, it didn't just feel weird, it felt worrying. I was also not in a position to do anything. And, you know, when I tried to be like, when I tried to say something, I think it got heard as I was making a joke, not as I was saying, hey, not cool. I don't think it helps that at the time I was a stand-up comedian. It's hard to get taken seriously when you're a stand-up comedian. You know, these episodes can be really terrifying, both for the person in them and for the people around them.
Pitsy, Gregory Bovino has been removed from his role as Border Patrol. In early 2025, I fell into a 4-month-long manic episode of psychotic, paranoid, and impulsive behavior that destroyed my life. As the situation became increasingly unsustainable, there were times I didn't want to be here anymore. Thank you for the follow. It's not AI? Yeah, God, fuck. I'll see if I can find it again. It's fucking terrible. Having bipolar disorder is a notable state of constant mental illness. When you go into a manic episode, you are ill at that point. When you are not in an episode, you are completely normal. And that's when the wreckage from the illness hits the hardest. Hitting rock bottom a few months ago, my wife encouraged me to finally get help. I have found, and keep in mind, I don't want people to look at that and go, well, why, like, Kim was trying to get him together. How come this new woman did it? Like, she's better than Kim. That's not, he wasn't ready to do that before. And also remember that while he was with Kim Kardashian, his height was at, like, an all-time high at this point. Like, his fame was at an all-time high. You know, Kim Kardashian is into the cameras, always, you know, has been publicizing her life forever. It's very difficult in that kind of environment to see that you're doing anything wrong, because, like, you're on all the time, whether you want to be or not. And he was not really willing to get help at that point, because he's like, no, I'm God. I am God. Like, you can't. Yeah, I think he's trying to rectify some things. I am going to give him that. I have found comfort in Reddit forums of all places. Actually, I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think the internet, this is one of the good things about the internet. I said that when I was talking about Tana Mojo. this is one of the good things about the internet, is that you can find other people going through what you've gone through, and hopefully they may inspire you to get help in any way that you can. It's one of the reasons why, when I was talking about getting sober for the Tana situation, I was like, I know our medical care system here sucks. Don't do anything cold turkey if you have a substance abuse problem. But what you can do is just keep going to hospitals until and getting the medical treatment you need until they boot you out for not having insurance. If you don't have insurance, as soon as they boot you out, go find a different hospital. And that's not connected to that hospital. Just keep hospital jumping until you feel stable enough to be able to get help. I literally don't give a fuck. Okay, nobody cares. Let your credit can fucking suck. Who cares? Because your mental health is more important than your credit. Okay. Different people speak of being in manic or depressive episodes of a similar nature. I read their stories and realized that I was not alone. It's not just me who...
Mental health is way more important than credit. I was soaking in the words, and I was sort of spaced there for a moment, but yeah. Credit is a tool used by capitalism to keep us oppressed. Your mental health is way more important than that.
Who ruins their entire life once a year, despite taking meds every day and being told by the so-called best doctors in the world that I am not bipolar, but merely experiencing symptoms of autism. Oh no.
Oh boy.
Oh no. Kanye, I have news. All right, Tony, go enjoy yourself, and I will hopefully be in your stream later. I have bad news. It can be both. Porque no los dos. It can be all of the things. I will say that women and femmes are regularly diagnosed with bipolar and BPD when they are usually, not all the time, but usually just autistic. They're usually, it's just the autism, or they have autism and ADHD, but they are getting diagnosed with bipolar and BPD because that's easier. Did you just get back with the boy, Ma, or are you taking?
And that sort of misdiagnosis leads to medicating incorrectly, or medicating when medication isn't needed. That's the kind of misdiagnosis that does a lot more damage. And it's that kind of misdiagnosis that is more prevalent for black people than it is for white people. Again, because, the diagnostician is trying to fit a narrative, trying to make a narrative fit to their idea. And I think because doctors are going to be less receptive to black people than they are to white people, they're going to be less receptive to hearing an alternative narrative, to hearing something that, more fits the facts than the decision that the doctor has come up with. I do think in Kanye's case, it's possible for more than one thing to be true at once here. And he may have had autism, he may have been on the spectrum before the crash. And, the crash gave him the bipolar and the other side of it. I don't know for sure.
Taking him. Listen, risky biscuit, it happens to us so often. Women and femmes are like regularly getting misdiagnosed because when women have stress of any form, sorry, that's my mom. We are peanuts with cayenne pepper. Oh, I want crows. She doesn't, but I want crows. We did a lot to like help the birds out, put boxes out with like old shirts and shit in it, and so they could like have a little warm spot. They trust us enough to like be like. I don't know how many of them it was. I don't know, 30, 50 birds just chilling at our house because we made it safe and put stuff out for them, like seed and all of that, because everything was frozen. But
Cool.
But yeah, you like I said, I again don't recommend doing this. But like when they kept trying to tell me I was bipolar, I was like, I don't think that that's the problem. And then I just started not taking the medication. I was like, hey, fun fact, I'm not experiencing, highs or lows. Medicine is doing nothing. But I am autistic and I do have ADHD. Sorry. I'm convinced I've been misdiagnosed with major depressive disorder when it's ADHD going untreated and causing me to be depressed and anxious. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I am the world's most renowned, unlicensed and unaccredited psychologist, psychiatrist, and therapist. But like, they don't want to hear that. And they're just like, oh, everyone has that now. And you're like, that's because y'all told us that ADHD was a child disease. It was a childhood disease for boys. It was a childhood disease. And y'all all thought we were going to grow out of it. And now you're finding out that entire generation, we didn't grow out of it. It got worse, actually.
As I built up a tolerance to the speed they were giving me to help medicate it. The thing is, like, it did help. The Ritalin and Adderall help the ADHD or the ADD a lot. But they still act like speed. Don't get me wrong, they still act like speed. When I got to be about 18, 19, the doctors started being like, look, I know we got to you late. Like, I know you were like 14 or 15 and already, had been struggling. Your grades had been, or no, actually, I guess I was younger than that. But like, my grades had already been struggling. All of these awful habits had already developed, all these things. But like, I hit a certain age and they were like, all right, well, you're getting too old for this. And I'm like, yeah, except I don't think it's going away. And then they were like, oh, I guess you have adult ADD. It's like, why? I mean, what does that mean? It means you have attention deficit disorder as an adult. And I'm like, all right, so like, that means my dad and my uncle have it too. They are obviously very like me like this. So, yeah, their understanding of these things almost seems willfully obtuse. For people who should be experts on it, they seem willfully obtuse.
It led to a lot of us having like multiple different careers, quitting jobs because of burnout, throwing fits at work, which also got us fired. Yeah.
Yeah.
My words as a leader in my community have global impact and influence.
Now, also, all of this, like all of the problems with the misdiagnosis, with not growing out of it, with, not with them not understanding how to deal with it, and not being able to teach us how to, like, all of this, every step of the way is made worse if you are black. If you are black or brown, the whole thing becomes way more stacked against you. Down to just starting that journey, getting anything other than a label as a problem, is almost impossible. You're more likely to, a black person is more likely to be labeled as a disruptive influence, or children, but also adults, a disruptive influence, or aggressive, or where a white person will be diagnosed with a mental health disorder. And that's just, that's just the start of all of that. At every level, it gets stacked on them. Like, the being black gets stacked into it to make it worse.
I'm glad he's acknowledging that. In my mania, I lost complete sight of that. As I find my new baseline and new center through an effective regime of medication, therapy, exercise, and clean living. Don't like that. I have newfound much needed clarity. I am pouring my energy into positive, meaningful art, music, clothing, design, and other new ideas to help the world. I'm not asking for sympathy. I do like that. Or a free pass. I like that. Though I aspire to earn your forgiveness. I like that as well. I write today simply to ask for your patience and understanding as I find my way home. With love, yay. Sir, here's the thing. I am going to hold space. I'm going to hold space for this apology. And the reason I'm going to hold this space is because it makes sense to do so, right? We can't claim to care about mental health. But the second you see the dark side of mental health, you are now like, anyways, fuck you, right? It's a reason why, I don't do it as much as I used to, but I used to be like, baby, if you managed to brush your teeth today, great. If you didn't, okay, tomorrow. Try tomorrow. Because mental health is not like they make it look like in the movies, where it's cute and it's fun. It's, where there's like these very deliberate breakdowns and all of these things. Like mental health, for a lot of people, it's like they are living in their house and it is in complete disarray, and they can't get up to do anything about it. They're not brushing their teeth. They do not have good hygiene at this point. And listen, if you're in that stage right now, that's okay. When you're feeling it, you will do it. Okay? You will take care of yourself when you can. You will do that. It's not all tap into self-care and do yoga type shit, for real. So, yeah, I'm shocked how many people think this apology is fake. Like, you don't have to forgive him, but you just have no idea how destructive bipolar can be. That part. I do think that a lot of people's take on this is going to be like, oh, he's dropping an album, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I need for y'all to get off of the clout mountain. Please. I need for y'all to like look at people as human beings. Like, yes, he's a celebrity. He's still a human being. I swear y'all don't know what it looks like. Y'all will say that you support mental health up until mental health is ugly. Every single time. Yeah. Up until mental health doesn't look good. Y'all, I support mental health here. I support it until somebody isn't taking a shower. Okay, I support mental health until somebody's running naked down the street in confusion. I support mental health until you go to somebody's house and it's just like, it stinks and there's filth everywhere. Then their laundry's done. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, get your life together. It's mental. Like, I swear y'all, so many of y'all, if you don't experience this shit, I don't know what to tell you, but it's hard as fuck. Like, you just trying to get up and get shit done is a task in and of itself. Every day, people who have mental health issues are like forced to work in a capitalist system. They get up and they're like forcing themselves just to get to work. Also, we talk a lot about apologies matching the venue where the harm happened. Ye did all of this stuff so publicly. This is a full-page apology in a newspaper. It is matching the venue. Also, low-key, it's one of the better apologies from a person with a lot of wealth and power that I've seen in a long-ass time. That. And I swear, we have to recognize that when people when they are in it, when you are in these episodes, when you are in your depression, when you are in your bipolar, when you're in your mania, when you're in whatever it is, you will not see outside of it. Like, you're talking to someone right now who, I'm about to be 46 this year. This is about to be 6 years past when I was expected to live on my own account. I had decided I had experienced enough life. I was tired and I was just over it. And I was like, yeah, on my 40th birthday, I'm going to have like a good time. And then I'm going to be done because I'm tired. Right? Like, that was my plan. Now here I am. A big part of that is because I got friends that were amazing and instrumental in me being like, oh, I guess maybe there is more. I guess there is more stuff to do. I just felt like I was tired and done. I was married.
I think that right there, that little bit speaks to the power of a good emotional support system, and that's something that we all need. I think that emotional support system is one of the things that one of the few things that keeps Black and brown people alive. The support system, the solidarity, that internal support system and solidarity and sense of community that Black people have, I think, partially developed out of necessity and still a necessity to being able to survive the society. Yeah.
Married and divorced, had multiple careers. I was just like, I don't know, abusive relationships, and I was just like, oh, okay, I think I've experienced what I can experience. So it's just like, I swear that people don't. Yeah, I'm 46. I'm going to be 46 this year. They show when they think disability is a choice that can be overcome by vibes. Sadie, that part. And I don't care if he's coming out with an album or any of that shit. That's neither here nor there. I actually think that that's a smart time for you to fully, apologize. To let people know, I made a lot of fucking mistakes, and please notice, I know that there are people who are going to go, well, he didn't mention what he did to his children, blah, 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 blah. And I think that was purposeful, because his apologies this is not an apology to his family. This is an apology to the fans. Can y'all read? I don't need to be mean, but can you? And if you can't, that's okay too. It's not your fault you're illiterate. That is not your fault that the school system and your family and whatever failed you. But you can hear. This is an apology for the fans. So this is not an apology to his family. And also, I do think that there was a point where he was very conscious about not wanting his children to be in the spotlight. So I think he is holding true to that when he wasn't doing that before. So I do think that this is a sincere apology. I'm going to hold space for Kanye to get better and be in a place where he can actually be himself again, especially because he is a creative. I think that a lot of people do not understand that creatives with mental illness then also don't like to take medication or do anything to fix it, not just because the disease is telling them so, but also because they think that their creativity hinges on them not being medicated. We watched Hannah's video yesterday.
Oh, yeah,
she thought her entire popularity hinged on her being drunk and wild. Now she's a year sober, looking healthy as fuck.
There we go. I didn't want to pause it at a weird place with her, with her eyes shut or whatever. Part of why I wanted to watch this video with y'all is because I saw another video reacting to Ye's apology from a different creator with a very different take. And I'm not gonna say who it was. I'm not gonna, play it. I'm gonna paraphrase the take. And, it was I bet he's got an album coming out. And don't blame, take responsibility. Be a man, stand up, take responsibility for what you said. I don't know that the guy said be a man, but there was a lot of take responsibility. Don't blame the mental illness. That's not, you're not really apologizing if you're saying, I had these things going on. And I really was bothered by that take. Now, I am not, the person having this reaction was a black man. I'm not gonna make a judgment call about how this guy felt about the apology. I felt like there was something going on there that didn't feel, it felt, I don't know. Whenever I hear somebody say, take responsibility, don't blame the illness, it makes me think a bit deeper about what's about to happen, what's happened. And when I thought about it, I thought about the car accident, and I thought about the traumatic brain injury, and I was sort of starting to put together some thoughts, but not really quite getting there. And then I saw, then we raided out into Audra's stream, and I heard her mention that she was talking about it and that it was going to be a video. And I was like, I bet that her take is a lot more nuanced. And, I'm sorry, that their take is a lot more nuanced. And I'm also willing to bet that they're able to put words to the things that I feel. Like, I do not put words to these nebulous sort of thought feelings that I have. I don't do that well. It's hard for me to describe and pinpoint where it's like, okay, that feels off. Right there, that thing, and then expand on it and understand why. And so I wanted to watch the video on my own to get an understanding of what I might be, and it was, it was this point at the end where they're going through point by point, saying, okay, this is yes, this is yes, this is no, and hold space for this whole conversation about holding space for this apology. I I wanted to step away from it being about Ye per se, because that can cloud the whole picture. Because of his celebrity and because of some of the things that he said that make it really hard to that would make it really hard for somebody to forgive him. Again, I'm not really the audience for this. You know, I'm certainly not. I mean, yeah, I'm Jewish. So, I mean, not Jewish by religion, but Jewish by blood. So, yeah, some of the stuff he said could have been hurtful to me. And there are certainly things that he said that upset me greatly. Because they upset me greatly whenever anybody says something like that. But, again, a lot of it, I'm not quite the one he was aiming at. You know? So me being angry and upset, while that's understandable, me accepting the apology would be me accepting the apology on behalf of other people. So the fact that I wasn't the target means that I'm also not the audience for the apology. You know, there's a little bit of it that's aimed at me, the I'm sorry for upsetting you bit. And I have space for that, sure. I mean, we'll see how you behave from here on out. That's really what matters. You know, the apology is a good start, but consistent behavior. And yeah, everybody slips sometimes and says or does something, but it's if you continue to try to be better. But again, I'm not the target of the apology. You know? So, being I cannot accept nor deny the apology on behalf of other people. However, I think that this is a good vehicle to begin to talk about the mental health systems and how they affect Black people. With that, we will finish up the video real quick. And yeah, see where we go from there.
Fuck. I think we can hold space for Kanye. I need y'all to remember that Mel Gibson went on an entire fucking anti-Semitic rampage when he got pulled over by the police, and the man still works. We need to recognize when people go through things and then they go, hey, turns out, now that I've spent time getting better, I was whacked out of my gourd at this point. I was not doing well. It turns out I do have bipolar disorder. I am experiencing these issues. I am now medicated. I am now having to look back and see the destruction that I wrought when I refused help. And as you can see, I have now accepted help, recognized what I have, and I'm happy now. Thank you. Okay.
So, yeah, you know what? I think Mel Gibson would have been a better a better person for us to compare Kanye to than Martin Sheen here. Because Mel Gibson had a similar sort of meltdown. It was racist. It was sexist. It was problematic. And that had a big, that's still, I feel like only those of us that cared. Like, it didn't do, I don't think it, he's still getting work. I do think it did some damage to his career, sure, but I don't think, but it also was fodder for a lot of jokes. But again, it wasn't as, it wasn't the same kind of, I'd have to think about how the public, I'd have to look back at how the public reacted to Mel Gibson's meltdown. Gibson was about addiction. And we turned Kanye into being about racism. And now Kanye is trying to turn the conversation into a conversation about mental health, which is where it really should be. It's again, I have not done the research here to be able to back up my opinions, my assertions. I can very much see where the differences in the healthcare systems are. I've very much been able to see the difference between how a white man or a perceived white man and pretty much everybody else is treated. And doubly so, and equally so in the mental and behavioral health systems. If you go back to the first video in the Idiot Does Stuff playlist on YouTube, you can watch me cry and swear and explain exactly why I'm doing this. Why this became such an immediate need for me to talk about. And what I'm gonna say is, I watched a black woman, a white woman, and two white men. I got an account from the two white men going through the same mental health treatment process. Emergency mental health treatment process. 3 white men. Although, I didn't get a very detailed account from the third one. And I leave it alone at that. This process involved calling the hospital because they were in mental health crisis. In the case of the black woman, I do believe they sent an ambulance to the house to pick her up and take her to the hospital. In the case of the white woman, they sent police. I don't know who they sent. I believe in the case of the white men, well, I know in the case of one of the white men, they sent both. In the case of the third one, they sent both an ambulance and cops. And because the cops missed him, he went and turned himself in so that the sheriffs didn't come into his house with a warrant. We only see what we notice. We never have it slap us in the face and make itself known. Deep. Very deep. What was that in reference to? What was I saying that triggered that? The hospital, they all went to was not great, and it's not great for anyone. I know for the women, it was antagonistic. And I know for the women, both the women, then they sent a sheriff to take them from the hospital to the far side of the state to a clinic. That's the white experience. Yes, that is very much the white experience. We only see what we notice. We never have it slap us in the face and make itself known. That is very much the white experience. For both of those women, it was very traumatic to ride across the state in the back of a cop car. I know for the black woman, there was a distinct fear of what could happen to her and that she may or may not make it to that clinic. And I know that 2 out of the 3 white men came out of the clinic medicated and feeling good about their experience. I know that 2 out of 2 of the women never wanted to go through it again and were determined to behave like normal people in order to not go through it again. Now, this does seem to be more along gender lines than along racial lines. However, I also know that the white woman didn't worry about making it all the way to the clinic. She wasn't afraid that they would that she could have gotten the wrong cop and he would do bad things to her on the way. She just was afraid of confinement in general. I know. Yeah. God bless America. God bless. And a large part of this is there are two parts of what's going on. One part of it is a for-profit medical system, which means that you get a system that sets up this crisis emergency room clinic, and then being pushed out of the clinic early, back into a high pressure situation so that you go back into crisis. So that you go back to the emergency room, so you go back to the clinic. There's this cycle that I don't have proof of, that I have tantalizing whispers of proof of. But it's there. And it's only possible in this for-profit system. It's only possible in a system that's turning people, the more marginalized the person, the better, into product. Into numbers. A lot of the money that gets paid into this system isn't coming from the patients. It's coming from the state reimbursing the hospital, the regional coordinator is what we'll call them, and the clinic. That's why they don't really want to cure people that they don't see as being productive otherwise. The two white men who came out cured went right back to work, started putting money right back in the economy, and doing their status quo best. And neither one would be happy to hear me say, being good little capitalists. Both of the women one of them has passed away, and she had a very hard time being a productive member of society because of disability. And the other one has a very hard time being a member of productive society because of disability. So there is an ableism aspect of this as well. And these are the inequalities that I feel the need to point out and talk about. Because I do feel like white men and those who are white man adjacent don't see these things. That, you know, like Lockpick said, we only see what we notice. We never have it slap us in the face and make itself known. And that is why I wanted to talk about this. And I want to dig further into this. I want to find more information supporting this. And when we finish with the book we're working on, giving us the background about how health standards are based on beauty standards are based on white supremacy. You know, that's kind of important background for this conversation. When we get through that, we will move on to trying to find information, trying to find more information about how the mental health system is. I'm not even going to bother trying to make this sound objective. This is subjective. I'm stating an opinion here, but also a fact. I mean, the mental health system is trying to ruin black people. It's not trying to do them any favors. I mean, get yourself a black femme doctor. They're the best you're gonna do. Yeah, it's just such a skewed system. And the thing is it's not doing any favor to white men. It's not. You know, white men are... they're Wile E. Coyote running out on thin air. They just haven't looked down yet. It's gonna collapse out from under them. White men are no longer living in a sustainable level of privilege. And I personally want to believe that there is no sustainable level of privilege, and that people will come to see that. And, you know, after white men fall back down to being equal with everyone else, we will stop trying to reach for privilege and instead try to bring the standard of living up for everyone. White men are... the privilege of being a white man is not going to last forever. And we are coming to a point in time where that shift is going to happen. And those white men holding on to it, holding on dearly to that privilege through anger and violence, are going to find themselves in difficult positions with untenable arguments and untenable demands being made to people who are not going to accede to their demands. Accede? So it is important that we talk about these things now, and hopefully spread some wisdom here so that white men don't find themselves completely caught off guard and completely endangered. It'll start with a Bad Bunny concert. I think it did. Bad Bunny concert was apparently great, by the way. Saw a few clips of it. I was busy DJing a Green Day and Bad Bunny set here on Twitch. I also saw a few clips of whatever that travesty was that Turning Point USA thought about. Oh. People used to think that I had to listen to Kid Rock because I was from Virginia and I was in upstate New York. I was called a cowboy. But then people went, well, don't you listen to Kid Rock? Why would I listen to Kid Rock? I'm a cowboy, baby. No. No. He is not. Oh, God. Clanchella. Yes, it was Clanchella. I love that. Oh. Well, all right, friends. I think we've come to the end of the episode. I don't think I can top Clanchella. So, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Lockpick. Thank you, Just Me Crystal. Thank you, all you lurkers. Big thank you to Audra Rains. Go watch this video. Do go watch this video on YouTube. And go check out her stream. I don't know if we're going to raid into her directly from here because I feel like that could be a little awkward. Oh, how was your stream? Great, we were talking about you. That just feels a little awkward. So, I'm not sure who we're raiding out to, but stick around for the raid. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Much love to everybody. And now is the time on the show when I say, as they say around here, 2 up, 2 down. VA, double deuces. I'm out, y'all.